Hi, welcome to Unspoken History. My name is Keisha. Thank you for joining me today. Today I want to talk about who the American Negro is. There's a lot going on in America right now, and it's very confusing when you don't understand who people are and why things are happening the way they're happening. And there is a reason. There's a reason why Donald Trump's doing what he's doing. There's a reason why America's in the situation that she's in. And it's prophetic. It's according to scripture. There is a lot of people fighting for their rights. And when I was doing my research for this book, that was one of the things that I found would be the case. Because what goes around comes around. And I'm not saying that to be mean or to say, oh my goodness, these certain people, this shouldn't be happening to this person or this shouldn't be happening to that person. I'm sure we said that for the 400 years that our ancestors were, maybe 500 years that our ancestors have been prisoners of war and fighting for their lives in this country, in their own country. Now everybody is, but that's what the scripture said. Those the colonizers that enslaved us would then go into slavery. Who's going to pay the debt? We owe trillions of dollars to China. Now, how you going to go and bully the person that you owe money to? Can you imagine that? Just imagine you grew up where I grew up, and you owe the loan shark some money. And then you going to go tell the loan shark, we finna do this to you and do that to you and tax you and tariff you or whatever. Really? You owe somebody trillions of dollars and you think you can tell them what to do? No. That is a big fat fabrication. All of them showing us, we're going to do this to China and Donald Trump's going to do that to China and Biden. Ain't nobody doing nothing to China when you owe them that much money. Anyway, but we like the fairy tale over here. I mean, we live off of it. We live off of fake stuff that ain't real, stuff that just put us back to sleep. And then we go, oh, yeah, we still comfy. It's still America. No. This place is going down and Donald Trump's doing it. So I want to read something. I did a video on Senator Benson. Oh, I think that was his last name. I messed up his name the first time. But anyway, it was the senator that said that Negroes, no, they're not Indians, they're Aborigine. And then people got mad. Let me tell you why the people got mad. Because if I were them in their shoes, and they keep telling themselves, because you can continue to tell yourself the lie to make yourself feel good, and as long as everybody's in agreement with the lie, okay, we're safe. They keep telling themselves that they brought all of us over here from Africa. I remember I used to do marches, this was a long time ago, and 2 teenage white boys rode down the street and said, go back to Africa. Boy, if they had pulled over, I'd have said, sir, you're from Africa. I'm not. You were probably created in Africa. Your ancestors were probably born in Africa. Mine's were. But it's the ignorance, and it makes us crazy. It makes people look crazy because they are crazy because they're living off of lies. We all are when we're living off lies. You walk around saying things that ain't true, but applying it to your life and it's not true. So, anyway, the reason why Senator Benson said that they're Aborigine is because the Negroes are Aborigines. The 1850 census only had, what was it? 1,600 Africans listed on the census in 1850. Where are the millions of Africans that were supposed to be here? So what happened was they came over here with some conversos from Europe. Okay, they were black, white, and mulatto. They come over here, and the indigenous people are brown and black. So what do? They say, oh, after 100 years of stealing people from over here, because they started in the late 1400s. So let's just say all of the 1500s, all the way to 1619 when they declared us to be Negroes. you know, the 15 odd Negroes, and that made all of the indigenous people Negroes. So if you go and you do an Indian raid and you catch the people, guess what? Those are your new Negro slaves that you just stole off the reservation, or that you just stole as a prisoner of war and sold them into slavery. That's exactly what happened. And so if you have to admit that I am right now sitting on that person's land and claiming it for myself, that won't feel good to a people, because colonization is over, because you're supposed to be giving the people back their land. But the reason why those people we call Native Americans cannot hold American land is because they're not Aborigines. So I want to read something in this book. This is my book. You can get this book at Amazon. You can get it at Dorrance Publishing. You can get it at Barnes & Noble online, Google Books, wherever ebooks are sold. You can get this book. This book is about American history. It is really uncovering all the lies that I was taught growing up. Because once my mother told me that, and then as I got older, you know, stuff just started coming to me. I would see more things that would prove, that was proof for what she said. However, even though I was gaining more knowledge on this information, nothing else was changing. Everything was staying the same. We all came from Africa, and then, you know, we're going to set up for y'all to go back to Africa. Well, a few years back, I want to say the first time Donald Trump was in office, he made some type of deal. I didn't read it, but I know something happened because I can feel it in my spirit, where he made an agreement with the president of Ghana at the time for us to go back to Ghana and get citizenship there some kind of way, or whatever. Because I've heard many people that left America and went to Africa, they still ain't citizens. I thought that was our home. I thought that's where we were from. Then why can't we go back? And how come the only immigrants that's being deported are from South America, the Latino countries? How come the people from Europe ain't being deported? You don't think any of them over here are illegal? But they're not being deported. Just saying. I'm reading chapter 8. Who is the American Negro? Excuse me. This is an answer to what I said, what Senator Benson said. He was right. Why those people would be mad? Because the American Negro is the Aborigine, and everyone is on their land, living the dream, making all kind of money, and stepping on the Negroes. And now we got a whole country full of folks. There was 1,500 protests today. No King's protests. Right? Because they realized that they live in a totalitarian regime. We've been knew it. Okay? Because we've been living under it. And what Americans didn't understand is that's not possible. They all said it. All of the prophets that were killed up until today, all of the ones coming out saying, no, 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 don't do that. This ain't right. This is what you're supposed to be doing. They have rights. You're still in their rights. So, since we, the American Negroes, have been living under a dictatorship, and everybody was okay with it because there wasn't 1,500 marches across America to help the Negroes. There wasn't. They were marching for themselves and being brutalized while they were doing it. So, what goes around do come back around. I didn't make it up. It's just the truth. In the East, India, in places they call it karma. You get what you work hard for. And Americans worked hard for slavery. They worked hard for a dictatorship. They worked hard for this country to be like it is. People with no rights. Did y'all think this, or did we think, and maybe we did, and maybe we still do, believe that this thing would last forever? Nothing lasts forever. You wouldn't be on top forever. And the thing is that they tricked you. They tricked white people. So now white people get to take the fall for everything. They didn't do everything. This was a conglomeration of nations. That's what the Bible said, and that's what it was. The kings, and they were all related. I'm going to do that. There was a 12-year-old girl that did it was for her school project. She researched all the presidents and found that they're all related. Every last one of them, including Barack Obama. He's cousins to the Bushes. What? What happened to white supremacy? That's what I'm trying to tell you. White people might be taking the fall for it all, but they're not the cause of it all. Chapter 8, who is the American Negro? Agatha Christie was a well-known English writer who is well known for her detective novels and her short stories during the early 1900s. Her first book, titled 10 Little Niggers, was published in the UK in 1939, renamed And Then There Were None, and published again for sale in the United States. The book became a famous mystery novel about 10 Negroes initially who died mysterious deaths one by one. The book cover displays 10 little black people, and I mean black. Black is coal. 10 little black people, meaning black like coals in the fire. There's a giant hand over them, reaching down, plucking them up one by one. Okay, they look scared. There's a big hand coming out the sky like God. And then it says the book became a film. The book became a film. They threw me off. Ooh. And was titled 10 Little Indians. And that's the one I remember. Is the 10 Little Indians one. The word nigger was not acceptable to say publicly anymore in America, although Americans were still very racist toward the original Americans, who are the Negro/Indians. The song 10 Little Indians was a part of the American public system. The American public school system. I remember singing the 10 Little Indians. I wasn't aware of the original version at the time. I believe that these three works are one and the same. They are made more palatable to people when you change the name and the illustrations. Of course, no more little black people being plucked up by the giant hand. Once the name of the book, along with the illustrations on and in the book, are changed, eventually the previous ones cease to exist. If you are a descendant of slave who has been at war with the colonizers for over 500 years now on this continent, you are more than likely the lost sheep of the house of Israel. You were prophesied to go into another slavery for generations, just as our ancestors did in Egypt. You are one of the house of Israel and one of the original people of the Americas. The website history.com published an article titled Explorations of North America. The article states that Columbus returned to Spain with products unknown to Europe, like tobacco and sweet corn. Columbus also told stories of dark-skinned native peoples, whom he called Indians. This was published in on the website history.com. It says, and I read this before in a different video, the definition of American that's listed on the Webster's 1828 dictionary online. It says an American, a native of America, of course a noun, a native of America, originally applied to the aboriginals or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans, but now applies to the descendants of Europeans born in America. Webster 1828 online dictionary. Now, how you just replace a whole people? How are the original Americans not Americans anymore, but Europeans are the Americans now? There were only 1,600 Africans listed on the United States Census in 1850. However, by the end of the Civil War, there were over 9 million Negro men in the South. The census was taken less than 15 years prior to the Civil War. Numbers don't work like that. You can't go from 1,600 in 1850 to 9 million in 1865. Don't work like that. Okay, it says, there are no records of these boats that housed hundreds of thousands of Africans. We were indeed sold from territory to territory. While you might not think that they used ships to transport indigenous people from one territory or state to the next, that is exactly what happened right here in America. Abraham Lincoln stated in one of his many speeches that it would be cheaper to buy your slaves in Africa rather than in Virginia. So go on over there, take that couple-month trip over there to Africa. Make sure you got enough food and water, because you got to make that trip back too. And go and get you some folk. Because all the Aboriginal people over here, they were white. Anyway, the census was taken less than 15 years prior. Yes, I read that. Okay, it says, while you might, yeah, I read that too. It has been revealed to me that the Negro descendants of slaves are the 3/5 referenced in the Constitution. Additionally, those labeled as 3/5 are labeled as Indians. These Indians are the Aboriginal, copper-colored Americans, and many of the Indian tribes of America were of Hebrew Israelite origin. The ancient Israelite language, and it's not Hebrew Israelite because of Hebrew. Israelite is a Hebrew, but, you know, because of all of the mixed, confused stuff that we have going on today, we have to say redundant things like Hebrew Israelite. Because there are other people claiming to be, well, they're not claiming to be Israelites. They just say they're Israeli and Jewish. Okay. It has been revealed to me that the Negro descendants of slaves are the 3/5 referenced in the Constitution. Additionally, those labeled as 3/5 are labeled as Indians. These Indians are the Aboriginal, copper-colored Americans, and many of the Indian tribes of America were of Israelite origin. The ancient Israelite language and culture is found all throughout the Americas. These archaeological findings are contained largely within the Smithsonian Institute. If you know the Smithsonian, you know what happens to it after it goes there, where they are never seen or heard of again. The Lord our God is revealing his secrets and fulfilling his prophecies in his appointed time. You can try to confuse this whole world, but the Lord knows it all. Therefore, as my mother told me we were Indians, she was absolutely and unequivocally correct, but trying to prove it has been a nightmare. The Aboriginal American Negro is one of the only constitutionally protected citizens left in the United States. However, none of these people's rights were ever granted to them under the assumption that they are from Africa. Even if they were from Africa and brought over here in the 1600s, do you know how many more hundreds of years they've been here longer than other people? Yet other people come over here and have more rights than us? Get it together, America. Okay. It says, there is a mountain of evidence that proves that colonizers from every nation have been trying to get the Negro people off their land for hundreds of years now. But why? Because of what's going on right now. When colonization ended, if we had known that we were the original people of America, then we could have stood up and said, okay, you know, we're ready to go back to our lands and be left alone. But nobody told the American Negroes who they are. And so it's just coming out slowly but slowly. And at the same time, we got people refuting it. No, you're not. We're the original people. Stop it. Stop it. Because you know it's not true. And don't try to go over there to some the Mongol Chinese people and try to test their blood and then come and test ours. That don't make no sense. Why would we be inside of them? We're the oldest people on the planet. How are you going to find anything about us inside of them? No, that's opposite. That's wrong. That's backwards. If you want to know if they're related to us as Aboriginals, then you check us and see if they have any of us in them. It's not the other way around. Okay, so let's see where I was. It says, therefore, as my mother told me, yes. However, none of these people's rights were granted them under the assumption that they were from Africa. There is a mountain of evidence that proves that colonizers from every nation have been trying to get the Negro people off their land for hundreds of years now. But why? If you remove the indigenous people from the land, you can control the land and all the people that are left on it. This is what we see happening in America right now. It would appear as if slavery is back in America, or maybe it never left. I believe that it has taken on different names over time to continue the enslavement of the original American people. However, now I see that prophecy coming true, that All Americans going to be enslaved. Yeah, somebody got to pay back this debt. And do you think you just gonna work the way you've been working and then pay your little taxes? Our taxes are not going toward the debt. When do we pay back the debt? How? How? Everyone's working. They're taking out Social Security, state taxes, local taxes, all kind of taxes. What else? They take out maybe 3 or 4 or 5 different things for taxes. None of that goes towards our debt. The debt that we owe to China. So, how's it get paid? We gonna soon see. We gonna soon see. Okay. It says, throughout American history, we have been led to believe that laws gave non-Negroes. Let me make sure I didn't mess nothing up here. All right. Yeah, this is what we see happening in America right now. It would appear as if slavery is back, or maybe it never left. I believe it has taken on different names over time and continue the enslavement of the original American people. Throughout American history, we have been led to believe that laws gave non-Negroes the right to mistreat their fellow Negro Americans. Their fellow Negro Americans. On the contrary, laws have always been in place for the protection of every American since the end of the Civil War. So what has been happening in the last 160 years? The co-opting, the taking away of people's rights in America. It has happened for 160 years. So I don't think we believe that what goes around comes around. And we didn't believe that your freedom was connected to Negro freedom. You didn't believe that either. Because your skin is white, they just fooled the mess out of you. Satan has been successful, okay, in tricking a lot of people out of their salvation, because you run around hating people for nothing. Ain't done a thing to you. Actually, those people could be your salvation. Because according to Scripture, you're gonna have to go to Israel for salvation, the real Israel. You can't create a whole nother religion and then gonna force God to come over there and accept that. That's not how it works. You're gonna have to go back to the original and follow that. And if at some point you find out that Negroes are the original Americans and the Israelite house of Israel, lost sheep of the house of Israel, and you feel yourself getting angry or wanting to really be upset with them about that, like, you need to get on your knees. You need to pray. Because your salvation is at stake. This is not about the American dream. No, this is about your salvation. Okay. However, these people keep no laws, and they find ways around them whenever these laws infringe on their desire to steal and plunder. So it wasn't just the government who was solely at fault. It was your neighbors, your school teachers, basketball coaches, doctors, lawyers, school board members, police officers, judges, bankers, and every other worker in institutions across these United States. Everyone wanted to be on top of their Aboriginal people and use them for gain. And I don't think that has changed. I'm not going to say that everyone was the same. On the contrary, the Lord has always had good people in every nation on the earth. Some Americans were against slavery and the mistreatment of other people for gain. However, there wasn't much they could do against the American mob-style crime violence that was very prevalent. That was a very prevalent form of justice in early American society. So now we got young people, black, white, whoever, in gangs, and they do mob style. They get it from their teachers. They're early Americans. That's how they took care of justice. They didn't wait for the police to issue the justice. They didn't wait to find out whether the person was guilty or not. Brown, black meant guilty, and so that gives mobs of white people the right to just come and take them out to jail and kill them. Okay, that's the same thing you got. Because people are gullible. They're sheep. And all a powerful person has to do is whisper some things in their ear and they go crazy. They go out killing people. Yeah, because Oh, Lord have mercy. Now, I don't know who been shooting at these senators, a husband and wife. You know, I just know what I read in the news. I wasn't there, okay? But a husband and wife supposedly got gunned down at their house. And then another senator and his wife, or senator and her husband, whichever one it was, they were shot too. But I think those people didn't die. But it's crazy when somebody can come out and say, yeah, you're the best, and you know, these people shouldn't have special rights, and these people over here are the ones that's causing you the trouble, and you need to get rid of them. How? I mean, what do you mean? It's scary. But I'm not afraid, because I trust in my God, and everything that he has said was going to happen in this world has happened. And the last thing he said is going to happen with this place is that it's going to be destroyed. Babylon is falling. So we need to be right with the Lord. You can fight all you want. If America's going down, it's going down. If it's prophesied that America is going to go down, and it is, read Jeremiah 50 and several other scriptures. Ezekiel, Daniel, Zechariah 14, Revelation. It's in several places. And it says the same thing about this place. It's not something that happened before. No, this is the end time story prophecy. Sorry. Thought I heard somebody in there. All right. Okay. Everyone wanted to be on top of the Aboriginal people and used them for gain. And I don't think that has changed. I'm not going to say that everyone was the same. On the contrary, the Lord has good people in every nation on the earth. Some Americans were against it. However, there wasn't much that they could do against American mob-style crime violence that was a very prevalent form of so-called justice in early American society. To these particular Americans, rules and laws do not matter. They do not follow rules or keep the laws when it came to the American Negro. There is a popular old saying, what goes around always come back around. The ancient writings, the Bible, make it clear what would become of those who enslaved Israel. It is not because of the enslavement that was the judgment, but because of the mistreatment of the people he made subject to you. These scriptures also provide exact details of the actions against these people and the subsequent end of our enslavement and the consequences facing those who enslaved them. Every nation was okay with the treatment of the Aboriginal Americans as long as they got their chance at the American dream. To truly understand this story, you have to believe in the forces of good and evil. We're in a spiritual battle that presents itself in the physical battles of this world. This is also a fulfillment of prophecy. You may not believe in the writings of the ancient book, but there are moments in history that cannot be denied. And in this context, personal experience reigns supreme. I learned in elementary school that my ancestors were brought here from Africa as slaves to work on plantations. That was all the information I had. I didn't learn anything else about my ancestors or anything about indigenous Americans. The world was all white. According to the movies that were available for me to watch in the 70s, 80s, and 80s, white people were in Europe, Asia, Africa, and America. White people had accomplished everything, while we were nobody and had accomplished nothing. This is quite the education system that was set up in America. One day while walking with my mother, I asked her, Mama, where in Africa are we from? And I was looking for a sense of pride, something I could be proud and happy about. She replied, we were part of the Cherokee Indians. I followed up with the question, and why aren't we on the reservations? She said they wouldn't let us. I didn't understand what that meant at the time, and neither did my mother. I could not understand how this could be, how we could be left out of the Constitution if we were free, and how we were not allowed on reservations if we were Indians. This only happens if you change your status to immigrant from Africa. One of the things that I learned is that the Negro, although the American Indian, was not allowed into the Native American tribes when the government allowed for Native Americans to return to the reservations if they desired to. The Bureau of Indian Affairs, along with people given the title Indian Chief in the United States government, these people work together to keep the Negro in a subjugated position. while the rest of the world enjoyed the blessings of their land. Whoever runs the reservations now are not the Aboriginal first people of America. Archaeological finds have already proven that they are not the ancient Americans. My mother said that they would not allow us, the original Americans, to enter their own tribes. Today, almost every single tribe in the nation has white people in them. Almost everyone. They can have almost no Indian blood and were and still are able to get into the tribes. There are several publications online that are in the public domain that you can see for free. Black Indians by Caton. The North American Aboriginal Society has thousands of photos and old world paintings and carvings. These publications are free online. The Olmec, Inca, Aztec, and Mayan paintings and carvings of brown-skinned, kinky-haired people. They Came Before Columbus by Ivan Van Sertima. And the Oklahoma Eagle has an article titled 98% of the Black Americans are American Indian. The article states that of the tens of millions of Black American Indians that were on the continent before 1492, many of them did not die in the Holocaust. Many of them were sent to Africa and to Europe as slaves. Let me read that again. The article states that of the tens of millions of Black American Indians that were on this continent before 1492, many of them did not die in the Holocaust. Now, have you ever heard of a Aboriginal American Holocaust? Many of them did not die in the Holocaust. Many of them were sent to Africa and to Europe as slaves. So the first 100 years from 1492 to 1500 something, I want to say it was 90 years, so it was maybe 1570, something like that, 1580. They had cleaned this place out. So when they took those pictures in the 1700s of empty streets on horseback in carriage with buildings in the sky, every city, California, Illinois, Michigan, New York, they were already here. Chicago, Peoria, Detroit, Pontiac, those cities were already here. The buildings were already here. Because they didn't have no cranes. Just saying, that's a story for another video. Okay, so where was I? Okay, while on this journey of discovery, I ran into several documentaries that spoke about the $5 Indian. The $5 Indian was the amount paid to the people responsible for listing American Indian families onto the Dawes Rolls. So once the Dawes Rolls were made, white people can come up and say, oh yeah, that's me right there. Show me where's stuff at. Where's house? The $5 Indian was an amount paid to the people responsible for listing American Indian families onto the Dawes Rolls. Who knows but the Most High God how many white people were allowed to claim to be American Indian? As I tried to research more information on these things that were supposed to have happened, I almost got nothing at all on a Google search. However, two websites came up. One was the Indian Country. It's called IndianCountryToday.com. This article was written by Alyssa Landry, March 21st, 2017, and called Pain to Play: The Dawes Rolls and the Legacy of the $5 Indian. These were opportunistic white men who wanted access to land or food rations, said Gregory Smithers, Associate Professor of History at Virginia Commonwealth University. These were people who were more than happy to exploit the Dawes Commission and government agents for $5, were willing to turn a blind eye to the graft and corruption. For $5? Maybe that was a lot of money back then. Maybe it was like, I don't know, 200. That means we have white people who have the ability to vote at large. That means we have white people who have the ability to vote at large. It means political rights. It means the potential to influence tribal policy on a whole range of issues. It means people have access to health care, education, and employment. The implications are quite profound for people who got away with fraud. Now, I saw the video of it was a meeting in Congress where they were trying to force the 5 civilized tribes to allow black people back into the tribes. And so they had to go to Congress, the 5 chiefs of each one of those tribes. They were all white. White. Not mixed, looking like none of that. They were white men. And there was an Aboriginal woman, black woman, trying to fight for her family to get back into her tribe against people that are not even American Indians or American Aborigine. It's messed up around here. So what's going on the streets today? It's messed up around here. That's a result of this messed up stuff, of all these lies and all this corruption. Because if you're, that's not the, you got to understand, they were not just lying just so they can help white people be on top of black people. No. While you were over there happy about being able to step on somebody else, they were taking away your rights. Yes. Every single time. Every time something came up and we were saying, hey, this is not right, you're violating our rights, hey, we're citizens too, and that got ignored, they took something from you. Every time. Check it out. Go look at every one of our presidents and see what corrupt thing they did. Every one of them. Why? Because America allowed it. Because she wanted to, everybody, not just white people, everybody that was over here. Now, you got a lot of people out here with white faces that say white people do this and white people do that. Okay, to us, all of y'all the same. All of y'all the same. And please, I'm not trying to stereotype whole groups of people. The people that do what they do know who I'm talking to. Okay? If you're not that person, I'm not talking to you. Okay. So, okay. What we had was simply white people claiming to be Indian, he said. They were early wannabes, just like we have today. $5 Indian is just another term for that. There is also a novel written that is being sold on Amazon called $5 Indian. It's a novel by Sam Chitto, A Mystery by Lou Clifton. The review of the book describes the same situation mentioned in the Indian Country website, that it was some white people who were able to pay their way into native tribes for a mere $5. There were vast civilizations here, well before the current native people. Many archaeological finds have proven the skulls and paintings that are found in America are that of copper-colored people. Okay. As I discovered truth, I shared them with my children. I've always told them that they were indigenous to America. But how can you believe anything other than what is being shoved down your throat? I did not learn anything about Negro soldiers fighting in any war, especially the Civil War. I did not learn about the Black Indians. I did not learn about the Buffalo Soldiers until I was almost an adult. And I did not learn that until I was almost an adult. At that point, I was led to believe that they were white soldiers. This further proves the point that so many things were not taught to me in school. And if it is true that they are nobody and not smart enough to accomplish anything, why not just leave them alone? Why are they always the center of all the attention in America? In 1865, the Aboriginal Americans, aka the Negroes, worked together to have their own space away from the white mobs. All of their accomplishments were destroyed during the years to follow. The U.S. government again took that which the Negro had built for themselves after the Civil War to satisfy white populations of America. That's what's happening right now. DEI was written a few years ago. All of these other things like the Martin Luther King holiday, Black History Month, even federalizing Juneteenth. Now they federalized Juneteenth during the DEI time, but it's a federal holiday. And so now you have white people, or not, let me not say white people, okay, because I don't know who they are, right? It could be black people, I don't know. But now you have what appears to be white people saying that it's unfair that black people get special treatment in college and black people get special treatment for jobs. Where were you? Where were you in the 60s? Were you not born? I'm sure your parents were born. I'm sure your parents raised you and taught you to be who you are. Because my mother taught me to not be against anybody. All the oppression that they were suffering, my mother and her siblings and her parents, she still didn't teach me to dislike white people. Ever. Matter of fact, she never talked about it. We lived our life away from most white people. There were some white people in the projects where I lived, but they were us. They were part of, we didn't mistreat them. It was maybe 1 or 2 families. And those families were fine. Didn't nobody mess with their kids. Didn't nobody mess with her. She was a single mother. But let that have been a black person moving in a white neighborhood. And kill the kids. Hold on a second. Hello? Yes. Okay. All right. I'll talk to you. All right, I'll see you tomorrow. All right, love you. Bye. Sorry about that. She kept calling me, and I kept ignoring her, so I thought I'd answer it this time. All right. So as I was saying, as I discovered the truth, I taught it to my children, but they were still being told, basically, your mother's a liar. She don't know because what they're being taught in school says that I'm a liar. The same thing that was happening to me. What I was being taught in school was saying that my mother and grandmother were liars. We're just trying to be somebody, and we're not. We're just trying to be who we are. Okay. I did not learn anything about, okay, so yeah, I read that. After 1865, the Aboriginal Americans, aka Negroes, worked together to have their own space away from the white mobs. All of their accomplishments were destroyed during the years to follow. The U.S. government again took that which the Negroes had built for themselves after the Civil War to satisfy the white populations of America. Their cities, towns, schools, businesses were either confiscated, bombed, burned, or buried underwater. Excuse me. I cannot list all of the atrocities that my ancestors faced, from the destruction of Rosewood to the flooding of New Orleans. The truth will come to light, and that's a promise. If you do not believe that there's a creator known as God, God our Father, and that he has a son named Jesus the Christ, then you will not understand the motives behind the secrecy, the name game, or the rest of the acts of the lawless. I've come to the conclusion about the confusion of my life. My confusion had come from my public school and college education programs. These stories and photographs were all of a careful design, which continues to reiterate the theme throughout this book. This book, which is, but why? The question will always be why, unless you follow the story and not just listen to someone else tell you the story. Historical writings and archaeological findings have confirmed for me the validity of the ancient scriptures. I thought this would be a fitting place to recognize a quote by Dr. Martin Luther King to put a stamp of approval on the truth. 100 years later, and I'm quoting, the Negro is still languished in the corner of society and finds himself in exile in his own land, end quote. Martin Luther King Jr. Truth can be a deadly weapon when placed in the right hands, but why is truth shunned and a lie accepted? We need answers to the many problems in America. The framers of this nation's Constitution knew that lies and deception were creeping its way into our republic. Slowly, you hear that? Republic. How do we get to be a straight democracy? Something happened. This is supposed to be a democratic form, a Republican form of democracy. A Republican form of democracy. We removed the republic part. Slowly stripping away everyone's rights. However, we were warned about taking this course of action and denying men their rights, their God-given right to be men. The framers of this nation warned you against this course of action, or you will be establishing slavery for your descendants. They said it in the Federalist. They said it. I read it in the old book back there. The Federalist Papers, written by John Jay, Alexander Hamilton, and James Madison, I think. It looked crazy. They were like, oh my God, this is looking pretty bad. It's looking pretty bad. Oh, so that was the end of chapter 8. So, as I was saying, everyone right now is in the streets because people are married to Latinos. People have children with Latinos. Like, how you just gonna come and take somebody's husband and leave the wife and the child, or take a mother and leave her child? If you take somebody from work, they can't go back to the daycare or to the school and pick up their kids. So what's gonna happen to their kids once you just snatch them up and don't nobody know what happened? I mean, I understand, you people hiding, but listen, they're surveilling everything. So to me, this whole idea of this street people going out in the streets and marching because of ICE raids or whatever it is, where they're showing up at people's jobs, at daycare centers, at courthouses, churches, wherever they want to pick you up. I don't know why they don't just go to your house. They know where everybody lives. And what happened to the millions of criminals that came across the border? I thought that's who they were going after. You see, you can't believe nothing they say. And y'all been believing it. Some of us been believing it. When they just tell you one story so that they can perform something else. So what he's going to do is declare martial law on the whole country. Right? Have us going in the house at a certain time. Got to show your papers. It's going to happen. And once the internal fight starts, then that's when our enemies can come. Because now we're fighting each other. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the video. Leave me a comment if you like. And I'll see you next video. Have a good day.